A blind man walks into a bar, and into a chair, and into a table, and into people, and has now become the elephant in the room. For the first 27 years, I lived what many would consider a normal life. Whether it was my family and I migrating from Zambia to Namibia in the late 90s, having to adapt to the new environment, learning the culture, the language, and the mannerisms of this beautiful country that is Namibia, to fostering new friendships, navigating my way through primary school and high school, to varsity, where I pursued a degree in computer science, while at the same time binge watching Game of Thrones, knowing full well you have 2 assignments due the next morning. Whether it was visiting my local gym to work on my summer body, which I believe is still somewhere underneath all of this, it's just shy. Pretty normal, right? Fast forward to a year and a half ago. Due to a series of unfortunate events, I lost my ability to see. Saying that my world got rocked like Chris at the Oscars is a massive understatement. It felt as if life picked up a bucket of white paint and splashed it all over my version of Mona Lisa. But the elders say, smooth seas never made a tough sailor, and rock bottom is still solid ground to rebuild from. Faced with a newer normal, with the support of my family, my partner, the birth of our son, and a few close friends, I was able to grab the bull by the horns, gather the strength necessary to transform my disability into a different ability. The conversation around disability is one that can get people or make people very uncomfortable, and is even considered a taboo in some communities. There are many reasons for this, namely learned behavior, misconceptions, stereotypes, and stigmas. I believe it's critical for us as a society to open a respectful dialogue about all forms of disability. Through this, we can educate, sensitize, raise awareness, create a culture, and cultivate understanding, empathy, acceptance, and tolerance. Once we learn to have these difficult and uncomfortable conversations, once we collectively, intentionally, and practically address the elephant in the room, we can then debunk these misconceptions and therefore rehumanize disability. But before I continue, allow me to pose this question. Has there ever been a moment in your life where you felt like you were the elephant in the room? Perhaps you have a controversial religious belief and you were ostracized for that. Perhaps you took a different political stance. Maybe you tried to play devil's advocate about a sensitive social issue, and the social media justice league and the Twitter Avengers got on you, they dragged you, and they canceled you. But I do digress. In May of last year, after learning to manage my social anxiety, I went with my friend for lunch. Upon our arrival, we were met by a lovely waitress. She showed us to our table, and as per usual, we were handed menus. Now, me being me, I jokingly asked whether they have menus in Braille. Insert awkward silence here. Sensing how uncomfortable she was, I immediately smiled and said, "It's okay, we'll manage." My friend, on the other hand, looked at me and he said, "I wish you would have seen her face and her reaction when you asked her that." Mind you, I had no malice asking that question. I just didn't know that restaurants don't have menus in Braille. But this was an eye-opener for me. Not only because there was no ease of access to a service, but I also realized why accessibility is so important. I know that many of us in this room, and correct me if I'm wrong, would not visit an establishment, organization, or meeting place or social place where you don't have ease of access to services, or where the menu of the restaurant was in another language. You see, accessibility is more than just a ramp outside a building. It's more than just a rail next to stairs. It sounds inconsequential at a surface level, but I believe that the smallest things do make the biggest difference. Have you ever had a mosquito in your room and you're trying to sleep? Absolute chaos, right? Such a small thing, but causing complete havoc in your room. After searching all four corners of the earth, my family and I finally found a phone that I could use. After mastering the basic functions, I took to social media like a duck to water, and I remember my first Facebook post, and it read as follows: "This is so weird. If you know, you know." Mind you, at this point, some people already knew what had happened. Later that day, I got a call from a close friend, and he tells me, "Sima, you're scaring people." And I asked him, "What do you mean?" And he proceeded to say that a mutual friend had called him to find out whether the news they had heard through the grapevines was really true. And if so, how is he posting? Fake news, exposed, right? I could have taken offense to this, but I decided not to, because I realized that what seemed normal to me was very foreign to others. So I sat back and I wondered and I thought, what could I create in my capacity to invite people into my world, to invite them and see how I perform day-to-day tasks so we can create some sort of understanding. So I started creating short clips where I explained how I use my phone with the different functions, how I post on social media, how I send messages, how I make calls, how I attend Zoom meetings, and so on and so forth. Through these conversations, and through that, it sparked the curiosity, which then led to conversations where both parties were educated and enlightened about how I actually go about posting, and that someone who's visually impaired being active on social media should not be shocking. And through this, we were able to create a bridge of understanding. And that is one of the most human things that we can do as a society. After transitioning into the public speaking space, through the aid of Toastmasters International, to learn the nuts and bolts of public speaking, which is one of the main reasons I'm on a platform such as this today. But how I got here is a very random yet defining moment in my journey. It was a windy, dusty morning in August, and I was being super productive scrolling on Twitter, when I came across a post about TEDx auditions. I pondered about it for a while, and I thought to myself, oh, what the heck, let me challenge myself. And honestly, I just like things. With the help of my tech-savvy nephews, we submitted the video application. I was selected to come for the auditions, and the rest, as they say, is history. But it was in preparing for this event, TEDx, that I noticed something, and studying previous speakers, that there's never been someone like me on a platform such as this. There has never been someone who is visually impaired on the TEDx platform in my country. And this led me to realize or think about why representation is so important. How we are seen, perceived, and received in society matters. The lens through which persons living with disabilities is one that is of the notion that we need to be coddled or treated like class. And that may be true to a certain extent. But I believe in actual fact, we need to educate and enlighten society about how to interact and be aware and be mindful about people that are living with disabilities. Then we can foster a more positive society. With more positive representation in schools, at the workplace, on the playground, in your friend group, in media, we can start to change the narrative from this being an exception to it becoming the norm. We can start to transition from this being a postable or retweetable moment to just regular life. Now you might ask me why I chose these three aspects or these three areas, namely accessibility, inclusivity, and representation. I focused on these areas because accessibility solves the lack of consideration. Inclusivity solves marginalization, and representation alleviates misconceptions. Imagine a world where the abled and the differently abled can sit around a fire, talk about life, share their life experiences, and build a bridge of understanding. I believe that this all starts with a simple conversation. Communication is the key through which we as a society can unlock the door to rehumanizing disability. And I'm willing to take the first step. Hi, I'm Sima. I love music and reading. I love dogs. I love stand-up comedy. I enjoy being a dad to the most beautiful baby boy. I thrive. I have a very unhealthy relationship with Game of Thrones. A weakness for sour worms. And I'm visually impaired. What about you? Thank you.